guys, it's Craig here. Welcome to Homebrew Wednesday. Cheers. Another glass of wine. I'll explain. Good wine though. I don't have any homebrew right now. I've been extremely busy. I got some on, and it's going to be ready to keg in about, I'd say, 2 days or so. But springtime here, and my backyard needs a lot of work, and I'm out there. I actually have to rip up the back, like the grass is kind of like it's really damaged, and so I gotta like do the whole, I don't know, not that great at that kind of things, but I'll have to figure it out. Anyways, so cheers, and for that reason I've been a little bit behind on the brewing, and that means that I need to brew. So I'm going to be showing you something in a few minutes that I'm going to be doing, which is beneficial to me. And it might be beneficial to you too, but that's completely up to you. But to lead up to that, I've told this story before, but really not in as much detail. I was thinking of something the other day. It was probably back in 1985, 86, anyway, somewhere in there. My parents, who are huge beer lovers. And my dad's passed away 10 years ago, but, or 11 now, I guess. But, they were huge beer drinkers, loved beer. Not much into craft beer, just, liked their store-bought, kind of run-of-the-mill Miller Lite or whatever the heck it was they used to drink. And in Canada, and especially in, my province back then, you can only buy beer in the beer store. You couldn't buy it in grocery stores. You couldn't buy it anywhere. As a matter of fact, that's pretty much the case still up here, although there are some grocery stores that are now starting to be allowed to sell beer. But it's still licensed under the Liquor Control Board of Ontario. And in different provinces, there's different names, but it's basically the same thing. So, if that organization goes on strike, you can't buy beer. So, you can kind of see where I'm going with this too. Like my father, he panicked. He heard that there could be a strike in this particular area. So he decided he was going to go out and buy 30, 40 cases of beer, 24 packs of beer, just so that, they had it. Like it's like, if you find out if the power goes out or something, you got to go to the grocery store and get, stock up on food. Well, my parents stocked up on beer when they thought that they weren't going to be able to buy it. So you can see that the apple didn't fall far from the tree, if you will. But anyway, so after that, my dad decided, he said, I really don't want to be under the thumb of this system. I know there's a way I can make my own beer. So he walked down to the local homebrew supplier, Complete Home Brewing, still there, still called that. And he said, how do I do this? So they sold him a bucket, a spoon, a siphoning thing, some bottles and some caps, and his first beer kit. So I'm seriously talking like 1987 here. So he came home and, they started brewing their own beer, because that way they didn't have to worry about this kind of thing. Because I think it happened twice where there was a strike on beer stores. And he had it. He had enough. My parents, they could afford to buy beer, but they didn't want to deal with this. So they started making their own beer. And, was it good beer? No, it wasn't. I can tell you that. But I was a teenager. I was actually in my late teens, early 20s-ish. Like, I don't feel like doing the math right now, but I was, at the age where I wanted to start drinking a little bit of stuff. And to me, the beer was it was beer. It was alcohol. Didn't matter what it tasted like. It was cloudy. It smelled like crap. And it's probably because the extract that they bought came in a little can like this. And they added like a pound of table sugar to make it work. And it just wasn't good beer. So after doing that a few times, my dad decided he was just going to brew his own beer at a place where they brew beer for you. And you go in and you bottle it, and you go and you pick it up and you bring it home. And that was pretty good beer. That was actually not bad beer at all. They made it out of extract or all grain, and then you went and bottled it and brought it home. It was good. It was pretty good beer. After a while, my parents got sick of carrying heavy things around, and they just went back to buying beer. And so eventually, about 4 years later, I was at my girlfriend's house at the time. Her father was a beer drinker. I used to go in there and he'd say, "Hey Craig, you want a beer?" He was an Englishman, right? He's a good guy, good fella. And he'd always give me beers out of his fridge, and he'd buy a 12-pack of beer, and he'd give me like 6. And I'd go home like drunk, and then that was it. I felt bad after a while. So I used to go to the beer store with a little bit of money that I had. I was in college, so it was like whatever paper route money I had saved up. And I would buy a case of beer and I would split it with them. Just, to be fair, I thought it was, just the right thing to do, right? After a while I realized this stuff's really expensive. And, my dad used to make this stuff. I'm pretty sure you could do that for a lot cheaper. So I marched my way down to the same homebrew supply shop that he went to, and I asked him about it. Now, my dad still had all his old stuff down in the basement. He had his old bucket, his old spoon, his old siphoning thing, and all that. All that was down there. And so I thought, I could just make beer. So I went down and I bought, I think my first beer kit was like a Brew Canada, pre-hopped kilogram of sugar, and a little paper with instructions on it that they actually typed with a typewriter, because back then we didn't really have computers, really. I brought this home and I brewed it. And it worked. It was good. And you know what? It only cost me $15 for 65 bottles of beer. And I'm thinking, this is working for me. I mean, you just mixed it, like, you saw me do it here on the stove right here. Now, eventually, somewhere around the mid-90s, I was having problems with one of the particular brands that I was brewing. It was a John Bull. Yeah, that was the name, the brand name of the beer kit. I always had trouble with the yeast with that. It was, for some reason, I would brew it. The next day I would get up, nothing was happening. I'd have to go back to the homebrew shop, get another package of yeast, dump it in, and everything would be fine. But then the beer would taste weird because of all that yeast and all that dead yeast that was in there, and something was wrong. So I just got tired of that. So went back, and they were carrying a new, it wasn't a new product, but it was new to them. It was Cooper's. They had like 3 or 4 different cans there. So I thought, I'll try this and see what happens with this. So I brewed the Cooper's Draft. And I did kit and kilo, just the same as I was always doing it. And this worked. It fermented very quickly. The beer was decent. And despite the fact that I had really terrible temperature control, and like if none at all actually. And I brewed that for, and this is embarrassing. I brewed the Cooper's Draft for I'd say about 7 years. 7 years, nothing else. Cooper's Draft, that's it. Every couple of weeks or 3 times a month, I would fill my pipeline with Cooper's Draft, and I would bottle it, and I would always have a spare batch, and that's what I did. It was a way for me to have beer around without the high prices of beer. Beer is expensive where I live, and I've said this a million times. So this, for me, wasn't a hobby. It was not a hobby. It was a means to an end, and that is to have decent beer around without paying the high prices. I found a book. Somebody gave me a book, a homebrew book. This was back in like 2000 and something, 2001 or something like that. It was really a long time ago, and it was a homebrew book. And it wasn't. I don't remember who wrote it, but it was. I was looking through it, and I was like looking at all the pictures and stuff, and going like, what are they doing? What is this? Like the internet wasn't really that. There wasn't hardly any information on the internet at all about homebrewing, and there certainly was no YouTube back then. So I really just didn't understand what this book was trying to tell us. Like, I saw pictures of people grinding stuff up and, boiling things for an hour, adding hops and cooling it down and all this procedure. And I didn't understand it at all. I was naive. This is where I get my jaded background from. There's a few people around YouTube that don't understand why I would even bother or still bother brewing these pre-hopped beer kits. And I know I've said this a million times, and I'm sorry, I'm not apologizing, but that's where it comes from. I brewed these things for 15 years. Actually 20 years I brewed pre-hopped beer kits. Didn't know anything about all grain, didn't join any beer clubs or anything like that, didn't know a thing about any of that, just did what I needed to do so I didn't have to walk across the road and pay top dollar for shitty beer. That's what I was doing, basically. The beer I was making was better than the beer I was buying, and it was cheaper. Around 2007, I started looking around on YouTube. Now, YouTube was pretty new back then, and I've told this story before, so I apologize if you've heard this, but I get new subscribers every day, and I need to make sure people know what my background is, so bear with me. I've got something I'm going to show you in a minute that's going to sum up this whole thing. I started looking on YouTube, and I saw the all grain videos. There was only a couple of them, maybe even only one. And so I watched this guy, he had an 8-part series on how to do all grain. And I watched it, and I reminded myself about that book that I looked at, that I threw back in the drawer. Well, now I completely understand all this stuff. Of course I do. But back then I didn't. And this is where the YouTube channel, CraigTube channel, really started to move. Numbers started to happen. People started to get interested in it and started to subscribe, ask questions, and it was great. And so I started thinking, well, what else am I going to do? I gotta play the drums. I'll play the drums. Yeah, I'll do that. Okay, yeah, perfect. And then I'll cook, or I'll do something. I'll sing. I'll do whatever. What people really wanted was the brewing videos. I started thinking, well, I need to come up with some more content here in the brewing area. Partial extract, mini mash. I need to get into this stuff because people want this. A couple of things happened along the way that pushed me to do more and do more. I got some stuff from some people. Someone sent me a mash tun, and this was like a good reason for me to go, all right, you guys you obviously want me to do all grain. Let's do it. So I did that, and I got myself into all grain, and I've never looked back. It's great. I love doing it. I do it right here on the counter. Right here on the counter, 2 pots on the stove. There's a link to the video down below. So a lot has happened. And all thanks to just, the whole idea that, beer's expensive here. I can make it in my little apartment where I live, where the kitchen wasn't much bigger than this little area right here that you can see. Seriously, it was that small. And I needed to brew beer. So that brings me to where we are today. Coming up very shortly on 10 years on YouTube for me. And, I'm going to have a t-shirt out. But I started thinking to myself, I kind of missed those days, back in the apartment, the mid-90s when it was just my wife and I. And, we had no kids. Not that I mean, of course I love my kids, but this was a simple time for me. I would just go in the kitchen, I put the pot in the stove, I would put some extract, Cooper's in there, add a little bit of sugar, mix it around, add some water, ferment it, drink it. Out in the balcony, in the middle of the summer, great memories for me. 25 years ago. I was literally half my age when I started brewing my beer. And I didn't do it because I had this urge to brew. No, for me, it was just like, either I drink beer or I don't. Either I make my own beer or I don't drink it at all. It was an alternative for me. So this is the whole roots of it. I would not have started making beer. Things would have worked out differently, and I don't think I would have started a channel on YouTube about home brewing if there wasn't a reason. And the reason, there are other ways of doing it, and I showed the easy way. And that's what I called it. Home brewing the easy way. So that's the story. And along the way, I've developed, and now it's a hobby. Now it's a hobby. I mean, now it's a YouTube thing, and it's a personal thing. I love great tasting beer. Can I make all grain beer every 2 weeks? No, I can't. But in order to keep the pipeline going, I brew the pre-hopped kits. Well, I'm going to show you something because I went on the DIYbeer.com website, and I found a whole line of new Cooper's products. And I thought to myself, it's been 25 years since I started brewing beer. I need to celebrate. Ron Popeil here. No, I'm just joking. I know this looks like an advertisement, but it's not. I'm very curious about these things. I'll show a close-up of them now so you can watch, look at what they are. But I will brew these and let you know what I think of all the different ones. There's 7 of them here, right? So I'll tell you what I think. You know, I know there's people out there who are going to go, oh, I'm not going to brew these on video, don't worry. But I will brew these and let you know what I think of all the different ones. There's 7 of them here, right? So I'll tell you what I think. I got so much work to do outside, gardening and, you know, just stuff to do around the house, painting and whatnot. I need to be able to brew simple beer. There's going to be some haters and people out there. There always is. Doesn't matter what you do on YouTube. You could save the world from disaster on YouTube, and you're still going to get people who, you know, who hate it. So that's fine. Those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. So there you go. We're going to do these. I'm going to brew these up in between partials and all grains, and we'll see how they taste. I can't wait. So that's what's coming up. Now let me move these over here. If you guys have any questions or comments, please post them down below in the comment section. I always welcome those things. As a YouTuber and a home brewer and somebody who's part of the homebrew community here on YouTube, I understand that people have different lifestyles. And so I try to cover all the bases. You see what I'm saying? I try to cover all the bases. And my hope and wish is that all of us can agree with each other's brewing methods and get along. It's all good. I'm happy. Do I look upset? No, I'm not. I'm happy. I'm very happy. You guys want a t-shirt? tgtshirts.com. I thank you guys so much for your support and for watching my stuff. And hopefully you've subscribed and continue to watch, and please comment down below and thumb up the video if you like it. That helps us out a lot. Helps me out, helps you out too, because it tells YouTube you want to see more of this type of video. That's all there is to it. I'm gonna finish my glass of wine, and I cheers to you guys. 17. That's good wine. Be safe. Cheers.